Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Salamu alaikum, and welcome back to yet another edition of Muslims Uncensored, which I'm sure you've all been waiting for with great anticipation. I'm here, of course, Robert Carter, and I'm also joined by my sidekick, Roshan Sali, our crazy editor here at Five Pillars. Welcome, Roshan. Thank you very much for joining me once again, as you do every single week. It's good to see you again. Yes, we have a lot to talk about. It's quietening down the news, but I think with what always happens with Muslim news is there is still a lot going on, high stakes. So the stories that we do have are pretty impactful. So I'm going to jump straight on in because it seems as if there's a really worrying trend happening in the UK right now where the state is really cracking down and going after some pretty prominent pro-Palestine voices. Anti-terror law is being used against these activists, and indeed some journalists as well have also been caught up in this. Charges which may be brought against them or have been brought against some of them include things like voicing support for a prescribed group. The latest example is Sarah Wilkinson, who is a very well-known pro-Palestine activist here in the UK. I'll bring her up on screen now. You can see her here in the image. So Sarah Wilkinson is the latest to be arrested. She was arrested in August. And basically her home was raided by people wearing balaclavas. This was anti-terror police. They wanted to smash down the door. She let them in. She was detained for a period of time. She's had her devices seized. You know, this is pretty standard procedure for anyone who's perceived to be in breach of terror offences here. But she's not the only one. The co-founder of Palestine Action, who's also in the article, he's been charged on the same day for offences including some breaching terror law, among other things. Apparently he's also been accused of trying to inspire people to cause criminal damage. So there's all sorts of accusations here. A journalist earlier in the month as well, pro-Palestine journalist Richard Medhurst, was plucked off of an aeroplane at Heathrow Airport. He's controversial in other areas. Our readers will probably highlight that, but the fact is he has been outspoken.
No, he was arrested for his pro-Palestine activism. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a worrying trend here, and it's
Majid Freeman as well.
Majid Freeman.
In Leicester.
Majid Freeman, another pro-Palestine activist. Yeah. He was arrested and is facing charges of this nature as well. I mean, who else? I mean, I'm sure there's more. I mean,
probably more we don't know about.
Palestine Action have 16 members behind bars, and 10 of those members, again, were held for a long stretch of time under terrorism legislation, anti-terror legislation, excuse me. So this law and these laws are being used, according to these activists, potentially as weapons to silence pro-Palestine activism. That's what they're saying.
That's what they say. I mean, the authorities would say with Palestine Action is that they're responsible for criminal damage because they're attacking weapons factories and causing criminal damage.
But that's separate to the terrorism.
And the terrorism thing, that's a different matter. Now this is because there are laws in the statute books which prohibit support for certain Palestinian and other organizations, anti-Israel organizations, which are fighting Israel at the moment, or some would say resisting against Israel at the moment, and it's considered terrorism, a breach of terrorism laws, to express support for those groups. Now, I would say that there are certain groups on the terrorism list. I think it's political. I think they need to be looked at again. So, for example, we had Hizb ut-Tahrir on the terrorism list, which is a peaceful Islamic organization, but it's considered to be a terrorist organization, and it's on the same list as ISIS and Al-Qaeda. So Hamas and Hezbollah are also on that list. But I think a lot of these laws came in during the Tory government, which we know is basically committed to protecting Israel. And I think they were political decisions rather than decisions based on right or wrong. So I think that they need to be looked at again. But ultimately, these laws are now being used to crack down on pro-Palestine activism. So if you express support for an organization which is fighting against Israel, then you're considered a terrorist in this country. Whereas you can openly support Israel in this country, which is committing a genocide, and no one will bat an eyelid. So there seems to be a contradiction there in the eyes of many pro-Palestine activists. So I think these laws need to be looked at again. You know, who is exactly on that terror list, because it's clearly being used now to crack down on pro-Palestine activism and send shivers through pro-Palestine activists, because they'll see prominent people being arrested. And I think the natural reflex of many pro-Palestinians, even those that might not support certain organizations, will be to not talk about Palestine anymore. So yeah, it is an issue. I mean, obviously, Huda Amouri from Palestine Action says that, you know, we should double down on support for Palestine, not stop talking about it, don't give them what they want. But yeah, it's quite concerning, you know. And these arrests are. I think Huda said in her interview, which you must watch, it's on our Twitter feed and our social media. She said that the authorities aren't going after everyone; they're going after prominent people, famous people, in order to send out a message.
Yes, let's play out a little snippet, not the whole interview, but I will give you a taste of what Huda said when I met her, when was it, yesterday in Bradford.
And it's obvious that what's happening is so many people are being reported. Actually, they're being doxxed online by Zionist groups. And if they're not being doxxed, there are Zionist groups out there going through people's social media, going through speeches, reporting people to the counter-terrorism police. And the police are being very political about how they go about these arrests and these charges, in the sense that they are not arresting everyone who's being reported, but they are slowly but surely going through the people that I believe they see as having either influence. It's in the case of Sarah Wilkinson. She had a large social media platform, reaches a lot of people on the topic of Palestine, or people that they see as significant or will be seen as significant to the movement. And because Richard is a co-founder, me and him and others founded Palestine Action 4 years ago, then they believe that they can try and use him, I believe, to try and set an example to the rest of us. But this is such an important time in history, and such an important time when we look at what's happening in Gaza, but also when we look at what's happening to activists here, and that we have got to push back and fight back, because they are trying to set a new precedent with these terrorism laws.
So there you have it, echoing what you've already highlighted. Basically, I think, you know, as someone who is from this country, a British citizen, as you are as well, I think it's just, we live in really scary times. We live in scary times. I mean, imagine, for example, I wanted to, as a British citizen, discuss something going on elsewhere in the world, you know, related to Israel or something else. And then I'm in a situation now where I feel like I might get sent to jail or have my home raided for saying the wrong thing about something going on in another part of the world. I mean, this country's supposed to protect me, right? It's supposed to protect my right to talk about things. I mean, can you imagine, for example, if people were having their homes raided by men in balaclavas because they said something about America's war in Iraq being evil, for example, because America's an ally of Britain, we have British police raiding my home for saying something like that. That's what it seems like is happening. I mean, this feels like a police state situation.
Yeah, it is.
And
a police
it's
state
been
situation.
mentioned by many people online. It feels like we're in a police state.
It also feels like this has been planned over many years. That certain, you know, pro-Israel groups knew one day that they were going to commit a genocide in Gaza, and they were preparing for that day so that when it actually happened, pro-Palestine activists would not be able to express themselves freely and to argue against Israel's genocide. That's what it feels like. It feels like they've been looking 10 years ahead or whatever to a day when they were going to try to eliminate the Palestinian people. And they've got laws in place to prevent resistance to that. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just worth noting as well that although Palestine Action has 16 members behind bars, they refer to them as political prisoners, by the way, just because they have them behind bars, they weren't sent down because of breaches of terrorism law.
No, it was criminal damage, yeah.
It was criminal damage. So although some of them were held under the Terrorism Act, they weren't jailed for anything like that. So it's worth mentioning, sometimes these terrorism charges are thrown at activists, it seems
but the case. Weren't terrorism charges,
but they're not actually, they weren't actually sent down for that. And obviously when you're held on terrorism charges, they can do things like hold you without charges. So although you're not charged of anything, they can still hold you and question you and take away your devices and things like that. So, you know, that's why I think it's so controversial, holding activists under the terrorism legislation.
It's also an interesting debate about breaking the law. Obviously, we don't encourage anyone breaking the law, but the fact is that if you look at 1960s America, what did Rosa Parks do by, you know, sitting at the front of the bus or whatever? She broke the law. What did anti-apartheid activists do in South Africa? They broke the law. So there's an interesting debate to be had over whether it is actually the right thing to do, and you will be proven right by history by breaking the law, when it comes to extreme examples. And obviously the Palestine Action Group would say that literally Israel is committing a genocide, companies are complicit in that genocide, and therefore they're taking direct action, breaking the law for that reason.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on, because we're talking about laws and lawmakers, perhaps. Well, there are a group of lawmakers in this country, pro-Palestine Muslim MPs, who have teamed up with Jeremy Corbyn. These were the independents, the one in the latest general election that we reported on extensively. They've teamed up to form a new independent alliance in Westminster. So this is now a group of 5 MPs, all independents, and they're basically trying to, you know, get their voice heard more so in Parliament. And they actually, I think, have enough members now that they rival Reform UK, the DUP, in the number of members that they have. So, you know, they're forming their little force in the corner of Westminster there, and they're trying to push their thing. One of the things that they criticised the government on recently was the arms sales, which were suspended to Israel. I think it was just a symbolic gesture. The UK made clear that they're not going to suspend all arms to Israel, but some of these MPs did at least highlight that fact and said, well, ideally we should completely suspend all arms to Israel. But what do you think of their performance so far? Because they've been in office now for a couple of months.
Yeah, not much. I don't think I don't rate their performance very highly. I wasn't expecting too much. I do think we need to give them a bit of time to settle in, and we shouldn't rush to judgment too quickly. I personally think that these MPs were elected to Parliament on the back of the Muslim vote, and because of Gaza. That's why they're in Parliament as we speak. They're not particularly in Parliament, I wouldn't even say to represent their constituents by attending summer fetes or things like that. That doesn't interest me. I know that's part of an MP's work. But I think what we're expecting from them is a bit of fire and brimstone in Parliament. You know, we're looking for them to really hammer home the issues, especially which comes to Palestine. And I haven't seen much of that. Yeah, they've issued a few statements here and there, but I'm expecting much more from them. And frankly, I've been disappointed. However, it is early days. They do need support. I also think that the Muslim MPs are not really clued up when it comes to Palestine. I think from the public statements that I've seen them, it seems to me that they're not really experts on the issue. They have a layman's knowledge, probably a better knowledge than the average Muslim even. But to be an MP and have that platform to speak, I think you need to do a little bit better. So, for example, when David Lammy gave that speech in Parliament the other day, and he basically said that we're going to keep on arming Israel, but we're going to take away a few licenses, you know, as a symbolic gesture. You know, one of the MPs had the chance to speak responding to that, and he said something really weak, where he should have said, this is not enough. We should cut diplomatic relations. They're committing a genocide, for God's sake. You know, we should stop all arms. You're completely immoral. This is the kind of rhetoric he should have been using. But instead of that, he stood up, he didn't really know what to say. So I think these MPs, I think if we're going to go through this process again of electing MPs to Parliament, then there needs to be a stronger vetting process so that we get the best candidates in there that really know what they're talking about, that are going to really represent the Muslims and their constituents. So I've been a little bit disappointed. It's a bit of a damp squib so far. What do I think about this coalition with Jeremy Corbyn? I think it makes sense to have a unified voice so that they can get more contributions in Parliament if they work as a bloc. I'm a little bit concerned that they're under the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn, because obviously he's an atheist lefty with many good positions, but also many bad positions. So I hope that they're not going to tone down their rhetoric on certain social issues, for example, just because Jeremy Corbyn's leading them. So I think it makes sense to have a loose coalition, yeah, but I don't think they should have Jeremy Corbyn as their leader. I'm not saying he is their leader. I get the impression that maybe he is, or he's giving them a lot of direction. So I think they have to keep an arm's length from Corbyn while working in a loose coalition, which makes sense. What do you reckon?
Yes, I agree. Basically, I think that I have hopes still that we could have some good performances from these guys.
Yeah.
So I think.
So do I.
You know, I think that they do still deserve a bit more time, because I think all of these guys are new to the politics game.
Very
you know,
green.
so
Very green.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I must admit, if I were in their situation, I would hope that people would give me a bit more room.
Well, they had about 3 months, and Parliament had a month's recess. So yeah, it is too early to judge.
I think so.
But
obviously, I've got high hopes, but high expectations.
People are going to
well.
maybe they're going to criticise me for going in too hard, but they have been elected now, so I don't think we should necessarily be too easy on them either.
Yes,
and we have high expectations of them.
That is
and
a fair
all
point.
I'm trying to do is, maybe sound a bit of a warning shot, and that this is what we expect as Muslims.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll be very happy to eat my hat, eat my words, and be proved wrong as well, because I want these guys to do well.
Absolutely. No, I totally get that point. I think, and I think you're right to say it. That's a totally valid point of view. I am concerned. I agree with you on the concern for Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, because I think that these guys obviously are new to Westminster political game, and it's a sewer, you know. So I don't even know what they're going to have to deal with in that place, especially because I think the establishment already is probably conspiring behind closed doors how to get rid of these guys.
Yes.
They don't like them. We saw the comments by what was that Tory
Kemi Badenoch.
Badenoch.
Yeah.
She's basically saying, look, this is the Islamist vote, and she's attacking them on that basis.
Sectarian.
Yeah, sectarian
coalition
Islamist vote. Not the fact these guys were elected because of the anti-genocide vote. No, it's got nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Apparently, these are all Islamists, and there's some Islamist plot to take over Britain. I don't know,
They're
but
not
anyway,
Islamists.
they're under attack for that on this issue. So basically, my concern is that, look, Jeremy Corbyn is a guy who failed as Labour leader.
Yeah.
They're now following his leadership in this independence alliance. Not a good track record there. Also, this is someone who backstabbed a lot of his mates in the early days. Ken Livingstone jumps to mind. So again, like, do you really want to rely on this guy as a mate? Hopefully he won't stab them in the back. I don't know. But basically, again, I think, I hope that they're going to look at this, as you say, not just falling loyally behind Jeremy Corbyn and his leadership. I hope they'll challenge him on a few things too, if he's doing something wrong on social issues. You know, I think, although this is an alliance, it should be an independent alliance.
I don't know. I'm not
like,
saying
there shouldn't be one key leader of the group. There should be they should all be leaders of that group. Yeah. And they should all say what they have to say. I hope they're not just going to fall in love with whatever.
They're independent MPs, so they must remain independent.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. They must stay independent, and they shouldn't be watering down any rhetoric on certain issues just because one of the other guys don't like it.
Yeah. And also, let's not. I think they might end up, because if they get attacked by the media, and we know what that's like, when the media goes after you and they start accusing you of all sorts, I think under pressure, some people bottle it and then they start to backpedal. So if they're accused of being Islamists for saying something about Islam that the media don't like, they'll start watering it down, going, oh, sorry about that. No, I didn't mean that. No, Islam's all about peace and blah, blah, blah. Well, no. We need to make sure that you're prepared to stand up and fight for your beliefs when the media comes after you. And on Islam especially, that's where we're going to weigh in on this, because if they start watering down Islamic opinion in order to please liberals in the media or Islamophobic,
then there'll be fair game.
Media, then there'll be fair game.
Inshallah, they won't do that.
So inshallah, they won't do that.
But yeah, I mean, but also the fundamental issue also is that no one voted for these MPs to actually form a political party. That's not the platform they stood on. So I do think it makes sense to have a loose coalition, but they have to remember they were elected as independents, and they must stay independent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, let's just own it. You know, if they're going to come after us because of Muslim mobilization, that's what this is. They want to break Muslim mobilization for future elections. You know, they're calling us sectarian, even though there's pro-Israel lobby groups, there's Christian political parties.
How many MPs are Labour Friends of Israel, Conservative Friends of Israel?
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
It's more than half the Parliament, right?
It's such a stupid narrative. But I think we, including the MPs and everyone else in the community, we need to look at this and go, okay, you want to attack us on Muslim mobilisation? I'm going to defend Muslim mobilisation. You know, let's not claim like, oh, Muslims aren't mobilising, or no, it's
Everyone
not really.
mobilises.
I mean, do you know what? They keep saying like, oh, Islamism, political Islam in this country, or Islam in this country is a bad thing. We need to deport Muslims. Anyone who practices Islam too much is bad. Well, I believe that more Islam in this country would help this country. Do you know what I mean? So if someone's going to ask me on GB News, well, what, do you want everyone to embrace Islam? I'll probably say, yeah, that would be great. Do you know what I mean? If they choose to embrace Islam, that's beautiful. That is a beautiful thing. Because do you know what? My religion is not a terrorist religion.
They've got a shot of going to heaven.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Save yourselves. Save yourselves. So this is what I want to hear. Okay, this is what I want to hear. It's just a defence. And if they want to condemn Muslim mobilisation, all right, I call for more Muslims to mobilise in the next general election.
How did this go from Muslim MPs to trying to convert the whole country to Islam? It morphed quite quickly into that, didn't it?
Well, do you know what? They should do Dower in Westminster, man. They should do Dower.
Dower.
That's a great idea, man. Why is that a bad idea?
Yeah.
Why is that a bad idea?
They should do khutbahs on Friday in Parliament.
Yeah, man.
In the House of Commons.
Do the call to prayer during PMQs. During PMQs, if it's time for prayer.
You want to go viral on social media, just do that.
Do you know what I mean? But they might turn at us and go, oh, you look at you like causing trouble. So what? Like cause a bit of trouble? But push Islam onto these people. Do you know what I mean? Especially because they push.
If Shaquille was elected to Parliament, he'd definitely do the event.
Oh man, see, he would have passed the vetting process if I was vetting. Do you know what I mean? He's an ideal candidate. But that's the thing, Roshan. Final point from me. I think the attitude perhaps will be, oh, Westminster, it's so serious and we've got to wear our ties and dress sharp and go there and do the process. You know, Westminster is a sewer. And if you can't force a change for Palestine, and we have to be honest, we're limited in the ability that we have to help Palestine, even though we've got some MPs in there, because ultimately they're a minority and this establishment is gunning to push genocide on the Palestinians, unfortunately, and is pro-Israel, everything else. Then, okay, if we can't affect meaningful change, if this system is so corrupt that it will never change for the good, and it's not a force for good on the world stage, let's just mock it. Let's just go there for a spanner in the works, upset everyone's daily routine, just block queues to the canteen,
I don't know where you go with this. I disassociate myself with all these comments, by the way.
Look,
this is not an official party position. Block the toilets in Westminster.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? Just like, okay, if they're not going to take the human rights of Palestinians seriously, then I'm not going to take Westminster seriously. Yeah. That's what I would be. If I was an MP, that's the attitude. I would show up without shoes on.
I just have an idea.
I would just cause I would just upset the daily routine of MPs.
Robert didn't take his pills this morning.
If that's the best we can do.
You show up without shoes on. What's that going to do?
I don't know, just like upset people. Just like, why is this guy not following the rules? Do you know what I mean?
That's a massive stand for Palestine, isn't it? No shoes.
Well, it's a message to Westminster. I'm going to upset things, okay? I'm going to rattle cages.
Your smelly feet will certainly upset things.
I'm going to wear a thobe. I'm not going to wear a suit. I'm going to wear a thobe.
They do when they get that parliamentary time, that 5 minutes they have, or whatever, to make a speech, they can literally say anything, can't they? So why don't they just quote from the Quran or read a Quranic verse out, something like that? Beautiful Arabic.
That's a beautiful idea.
That would go viral, man. And that would be like better than 4 years of speeches, wouldn't it?
Do you know that would be history in the making? The Quran being recited in Westminster.
Why can't they, when they speak, why can't they quote from the Quran? In the Quran it says, verse whatever, chapter, surah, verse, it says this, then do your speech.
That's deep.
Be unashamed about it. Unashamed. Yeah, you call me a Muslim MP, I'll show you who's a Muslim MP.
Yeah, you want a bit of Islam, do ya? Yeah, here you go. Oh, that's actually a really great idea, by the way. I know, brothers and sisters, do you know what? Put your suggestions in the comments section about how these MPs can actually give back. We gave them our votes. I didn't vote for them because they weren't in my area, but you know what I mean. We got them in. And give them some suggestions. How can they be awesome Muslim independent MPs? That's good. Okay, so it's not all criticism. We actually want to help.
Based on their Twitter feeds, what I see at the moment, I don't know what's obviously happening behind the scenes. Maybe a lot is happening, but what I see is not relevant to me as a Muslim who campaigned for them, and I think they need to do better.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's put some suggestions in the comment section, how they can be awesome. Push a bit of Islam, maybe. That's my suggestion. Okay, let's move on. This story is very, very serious. It's actually kind of breaking now, prior to the show. It's the Grenfell Tower fire report findings that have been released. 72 innocent souls were lost as a result of the Grenfell Tower fire, which was caused in 2017.
Including 42 Muslims.
Including 42 Muslims. So the majority of people that were lost were Muslim, or they were from the black and brown community in general. So minorities in this country were the biggest victims of that. But obviously, you know, everyone there, it was horrific, regardless of what they look like or what religion they follow. But the fact is that the report findings are quite astonishing and actually have created some really serious headlines. I've actually got a few listed here, which I'll read out. So some of the key findings of the report: a toxic relationship fueled by mistrust has existed between the residents and the Kensington and Chelsea tenant management organisation who are responsible for running Grenfell. Successive governments under David Cameron and Theresa May had received numerous warnings about the dangers of certain cladding materials between 2012 and 2017, but failed to take heed or take any action on it. These deaths were preventable. That's what was mentioned in the report. And in the aftermath, the local authorities, as well as the government's reaction to help the victims, to help the community, was, quote, muddled, slow, indecisive and piecemeal, with little done to cater to the people from diverse backgrounds, such as providing halal food for Muslims observing Ramadan. And those are the victims, so the survivors, the family members, many of whom were left sleeping on in grassy parks or in their cars after the incident, because the authorities were so slow. They were slow to help them after this horrific tragedy had happened. I'm going to bring up an image of the victims. I'm going to leave it right there. I hope you can see this. Obviously, I'm sure many of you have already. There are babies in this picture, okay? There are mothers, daughters, kids, brothers, fathers, loved ones, uncles, granddads. It was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. Do you remember the reporting?
We both covered it, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
I went down
there after the incident. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was there on the morning of the incident. I think it's just a symbol of Tory Britain, isn't it? How they govern on behalf of the rich. It certainly wouldn't have happened in a rich area. And unfortunately, I mean, especially for kind of foreigners watching this podcast, and maybe Muslims in America and elsewhere, Muslims in this country tend to be poor. We are on the lower end of the socio-economic ladder in everything when it comes to housing, health, education, jobs, everything. Whereas I think Muslims in other countries, especially in the West, they tend to be kind of more affluent. So a lot of us live in flats, especially in big cities like London, which is so expensive. We live in council flats or housing association flats, in cramped conditions. And that was Grenfell. That's why this is a Muslim story. People don't look at this as a Muslim story, but actually the majority of people that died in that horrible fire were Muslims, and the rest, as you say, were ethnic minorities from poor backgrounds. It's just a symbol of Tory Britain. We have a government that takes care of its mates and takes care of the rich, and I would say that that's the Labour government as well. They're not much different, and they neglect the poor. They don't care what conditions the poor live in. And they ignored warning after warning, because literally these people didn't count in the eyes of, David Cameron, Theresa May, these rich Tory grandees, and their mates in the financial sector, in the media, in all the establishment, spheres of society. And it's just this should be the symbol of Tory Britain.
And where's the consequences? I mean, has there been any? I don't think there has.
Excuse me. That's the frustration, Robert, is that how many years on is it now? Is it 5 or 6 years on?
Yeah, at least.
No, 7 years on, Jamal. Yeah, so no one's been held to account. No one's gone to jail for this, and that's the frustration.
I think what you've got to remember as well, especially for people outside of the UK who might be watching this was such a traumatizing experience at the time. No one could believe their eyes. People were live streaming themselves trapped in the building because they didn't know how to get out. They were calling for help online. my wife actually watched. My wife's Arab. There was an Arab woman trapped in the building, and she couldn't get out. She couldn't get out. So out of desperation, she went live. I think it was on Instagram or something like that. And she was live streaming, and she was begging for help. She said, "Please, I'm trapped in this inferno, this tinderbox building going up. I can't get out. I need help. Someone save me." And she basically didn't make it. So she live streamed, and then eventually it just cut out, and she was incinerated along with the rest of these poor people. This was appalling. This was so appalling. You know, we're all traumatized from Gaza right now. It's not a comparison. Gaza is awful, and it's been going on since 1948. But on a local level, this was really, really traumatizing. And the fact that no one has lost their job. The Prime Minister at the time, Theresa May, she's still got a pension, she's still got a career. She wasn't forced to resign. Was this not a crisis that would have forced people to have resigned? It was outrageous. To this day, there's no consequences, and all of these innocent people have died, and not one person has faced a day in court, have they, Roshan?
They don't care about poor people in this country. As simple as that, Robert. I mean, you know, this country is now, moving on from Grenfell, but in the same kind of ballpark. It's becoming unlivable, you know, for poorer people and middle class people. And you're leaving London, right? Soon. I'm sorry if, I'm divulging your personal information, but, we're not poor by any means, but we are being priced out of the capital, because we can't afford a decent place to live, and there are so many millions more people in worse situations than us. You go to the supermarket now, you get ripped off. You pay your taxes, you're getting ripped off. Accommodation, ripped off. And every single element of this society, poorer people in this country, are being totally ripped off. And we can't live a decent lifestyle. So many people are thinking about leaving the cities, going somewhere cheaper, or leaving the country even. This country is becoming a place for rich people. Even middle-class people now are feeling the pinch.
You know what's crazy as well? Like, if a crisis like this happens, a calamity, a disaster of this nature happens, normally a country would spring into action to make sure these people are well taken care of as well after it. At the very least, the government would spring into action and take care of these people and take the criticism later on. There are like regimes around the world where the UK condemns them for human rights abuses.
Yeah.
But if there's a crisis of this level, they help their people out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They put them up and take care of them and house them and give them some kind of compensation.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm talking about even some the countries like Saudi Arabia, for example.
Yeah.
There was a guy who risked his life to save people from drowning recently, and he was gifted all kinds of elaborate things by the Crown Prince or whatever, because at least they kind of take care of their own. And
we don't take care of our own. No.
This country acts like they're better than other countries, but we don't even like sort these people out. They're like left to sleep in their cars. You know, it was. I think they appealed to the public to get aid to these people because the government was so slow. The local council.
There are good people in this country, but we are run. Our leaders are rich people who are in the pockets of elite lobbies that govern on behalf of those lobbies, not on behalf of the people that elected them. That's how this country is run.
Absolutely.
And it's like, I remember Andrew Feinstein saying on Dilly's podcast recently, Tony Blair, for example. So when he's in office, he does all these kind of favors for his mates, these lobby groups, and then he cashes in after he leaves office. And now, he's worth 100 million or more. That's how this country is run. The people that govern us are in the pockets of lobby groups. They're the ones that control them, and they're not working on behalf of me or you.
Well, those are the main topics I wanted to discuss today. There is another one. I'm not even sure how we're going to handle this.
Calvin, Father Calvin.
It's old Father Calvin, or wherever he is. He's a deacon. I don't even know what that is.
I think he's not even a proper priest, I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think he's recognised as a priest by the Church of England or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway,
I might be wrong on that, but we'll check.
For anyone who doesn't know, this guy is a Christian guy, based here. Well, he was based here in the UK. He's basically performed Hijra.
Christian Hijra.
Yeah, I don't know how else to describe it. Basically, for our Muslim audience, this guy's decided to up sticks and move from his.
He's a blatant Islamophobe, and he said some crazy stuff about Muslims. Ex-GB News presenter, was he?
Yeah.
And he got fired from GB News. I'm not sure why.
I can't even remember.
Now he just targets Muslims mainly on social media.
Yeah, he calls Muslims Mohammedans.
Yeah.
For some reason, I know that's an old Orientalist claim.
It's a term used by people who invaded Muslim countries and tried to justify the Orientalists, basically, just trying to justify the subjugation of Muslim countries, deliberately misleading, so that people will think that we worship Muhammad, not Allah. So obviously, Muhammad, peace be upon him, is our prophet, the most important and the last prophet. But we don't worship him. He's our master and our teacher, but we don't worship him. We only worship Allah. Yeah. He knows that, but he's trying to deliberately mislead people.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's just being a rude Christian. I don't know what else to call him, a deacon, wherever he is. But basically, he's leaving the UK now, and one of the reasons, among many, was that he basically feels unsafe here. He's a bit of a weirdo, I think, and he's a bit of a hypocrite as well, because he keeps talking about how the UK needs to go back to its Christian roots and that Islam is taking over, and this is outrageous. Yet, what does this brave crusader for Christianity do? He leaves when he gets an opportunity to go and work somewhere else. I mean, he's a total hypocrite, and he's no crusader by any means. If that's what a crusader is,
he's got his eyes closed as well, because
away.
Obviously Christianity is dying in this country.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Even
you told him that to his face, didn't you?
Yeah, and even the
he didn't say anything, did he?
He's got no answer to that, because obviously the official statistics say that this is now a minority Christian country. We can see the churches are empty. You know, the pews are empty. They're being turned into mosques or into flats.
And don't blame Muslims for that.
Don't blame Muslims for that. They should blame themselves for that. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I must admit, if the Christian leadership is as yellow-bellied and as soft and weak and weird as he is, then I understand why it's collapsing.
Where is he going? I mean, he's not saying where he's going.
I don't know. No one cares.
I assume he might be going to Africa or something, because obviously Christianity is quite alive in Africa. I'm not sure where else it's alive, because he's saying he's going somewhere where people are still ready for the fight. I think those are the words that he used. But he's also trying to buy an island, isn't he, for Christendom?
Oh yeah. So this is the hilarious next bit of the story. So basically, okay. So bear with me on this, because this story gets a bit weird. So there's an island somewhere off the coast of the UK, and it's up for sale. I think it's about £1.5 million. If you have that lying around, you could buy this island. Basically, some crazy, loony sect which claims to be Muslim. They're
extreme Shia.
Extreme Shia.
Yeah, and they curse
Yasser Habib.
Yeah,
that was his name.
Yasser Habib, and he curses the Sahaba. May Allah be pleased with all of them.
Yeah.
All the time in a very provocative way. Even many Shia that I know think that he's a complete nutcase. I
remember this guy. His name's Yasser Habib. He's known locally as Khabith. That's the name that many people give him.
That's his nickname, yeah.
This guy
if you know Arabic, you'll know what we're talking about.
Yeah, this guy is very sectarian. He was booted out of Kuwait because he was sectarian. He's now taken up residency here in the UK, and he's been doing all sorts of sectarian things for years, creating trouble.
He was behind the Lady of Heaven film.
He was behind the Lady of Heaven movie, which sparked massive protests across the UK. Rightly so, because it was a disgusting, nasty film, a blasphemous sectarian blasphemous film, which misrepresented the beautiful Prophet and his family. There's no doubt about that. It's a disgusting, un-Islamic film, but unfortunately, he gets described as Islamist all the time, a Muslim all the time. So anyway, this character...
Just before you go on, Calvin Robinson knows none of that nuance. No. He just sees him as a muzzy.
I know, that's the problem with these guys. It's a bit like the Ahmadiyya cult, whatever you want to call them. They go around saying we represent Islam, and sadly, non-Muslims accept that. So the BBC reports...
If Ahmadiyyas are Muslims, then I'm a banana.
yeah, exactly. And
I self-identify as a banana.
That's the problem. And it was exactly the similar situation to this Lady of Heaven movie. It was described as a Muslim movie.
Yeah.
And obviously every Muslim in this country, pretty much, apart from a few crazies, hated it for legitimate reasons. But anyway, I won't go into that anymore. So anyway, this guy is buying it, this crazy guy, and this other Christian guy who hates Mohammedans, as he calls them, now is trying to raise funds to buy it himself so that the island is not bought.
The same island?
The same island.
I didn't realise
so
that.
he's trying to buy the island so that this guy won't buy the island. Does that make sense?
So should we try and buy the island as well, or
so
fight for his readers?
basically, this story's hilarious already. But I think what we should do as the responsible player in this, we should now try and buy the island. So basically, we've got to save the island from these two nutters by buying it. So my appeal...
Can we share it? Actually, I wouldn't want to share it, because you'd have crazy Christian fundamentalists.
Oh yeah, no, we're not going to share it. No,
I couldn't live with them.
No,
it couldn't be a three-state solution.
Yeah, we don't believe in 2 or 3 state solutions. No. If we bought it, it would be for the Muslims. It'd be for the Ummah. That's how I would pitch it. If you give us your money, we will buy it responsibly.
Can we have Sharia law on it?
We will implement. Yeah, why not? It's our
100%
island.
Sharia law.
Yeah, it's our island. We can interpret Sharia and implement it. See how we
Would the British
go.
authorities have anything to say about that?
It's our island, Roshan. Do you not understand
we'd
how?
still be under jurisdiction of the British law, wouldn't we?
I don't know about that, to be honest with you, but it's my island.
You're not bothered about these legal nuances.
Hang on a minute. So if I buy my home,
yeah,
I can do what I want in my home, right?
Yeah.
As long as I'm not doing.
But if you start chopping people's hands off, then the British authorities might have something to say about that. Because as we all know, that's all that Sharia law is in the eyes of Calvin Robinson.
Yeah, so we won't go with Roshan's interpretation. We'll have to go with another interpretation. But anyway, let's buy the island to save it from these loonies.
Yeah.
Because I think it looks like a beautiful island off the coast.
It's Scotland. Weather's bad though, isn't it? You know, I think we need to on a.
It's just 1.5 mil. Everyone, come on, just give us £1
spare
each.
change.
Yeah, we've got
pocket money.
Yeah, come on. The Ummah's got bare wealth, innit? Let's just get this island bought, save it from these guys.
You know, on another note, I do think that Muslims need to buy some land so that we can have retreats. You know, where my mother lives in North Wales.
Should we buy that?
Just buy North Wales. Yeah, there's a retreat for Jews. The Jewish community they bought a mansion, and it's a retreat. And it's run like a hotel, but I'm guessing either free or heavily subsidised. So Jewish groups go there, they enjoy the facilities and the beautiful North Wales countryside. We should do something like this. I think we should get out of the cities and have places where we can go that are owned by the Muslim community, that we can use as retreats, you know, on a timeshare basis or whatever. We need these places so we can be together as a community and live as Muslims. We need that space away from the horrible polluted cities and stuff like that. And who knows, maybe someone with very, very deep pockets, we can actually buy an island somewhere, but with good weather, not north of Scotland.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, do you know what's really interesting? This actually isn't the first time that Muslims have done this in the UK.
Oh, right.
There was a time, I think the Ottomans actually managed to grab an island
off
the coast of the UK. Yeah. Do you remember this?
Oh, yes.
That's a great story.
But there's a great story about it.
They basically planted a flag.
Go on. You tell it, then I'll tell it.
I think you know something I don't.
Because you're going to tell it in a sanitised version. I'm going to give you the real story, but go on.
Were they taking British people and selling them into slavery?
Oh, I was going to say that.
Oh, yeah. So there was something like that, I knew.
Yeah, it was basically a part of Britain. Do you want to tell it or shall I?
No, you tell it. Cause
there's a part of Britain.
He's very excited about this.
Yeah, there was a part of Britain that was actually colonised by the Ottomans. I'm not sure what century it was. I'm thinking Elizabethan times.
I'm going to check.
Yeah, maybe 15th century, 16th century. And they took it for a period of, 20 years or something. I think it was called, is it Barry Island in South Wales? And they actually occupied it. And this was a time, obviously, when everyone was going around occupying each other. And they occupied this island for about 20 years. And they used it as a raiding post. And they actually took slaves, like white Christian slaves, and they raided the mainland, took them to this island which they controlled, and then they shipped them over to North Africa. So they actually took British slaves.
It was Lundy Island.
Lundy Island.
From 1628 to 1631.
So was that Elizabethan times, or I'm getting my...
history.
It Tudor times, right, or something?
Yeah, it's around that time.
So Lundy Island was occupied by the Turkish Ottomans. I think it was the North Africans that they were a vassal state of the Turkish Ottomans, and they invaded Lundy Island.
Yeah, there's a really good YouTube channel. We know the brother.
Tariq Trekker.
Yeah, if you go to YouTube, he's actually done a series on this, which I'm playing out. So this would be really interesting to watch again to refresh your information.
Brother Arsene.
But yeah, basically the Ottomans took this island, Lundy Island, and it's a really interesting story, to be honest with you. It's a really interesting story.
What point are we trying to make here? Are we... Well, obviously, we're going to be accused of encouraging
the slave trade, or
the
something.
slave trade and the Muslim invasion of Britain.
To be honest,
are you making that point, Robert?
No, I was planning on just having a nice little island where I could just sit and like
chill.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
We can enjoy a bit of shariah.
Yeah, just have like a little masjid there and do some feel good stories. I wasn't expecting to go to the slave trade.
I think it's just my vision is just we're not going to take white slaves. And sell them in the markets of North Africa
to the Turks or something.
No. It's more just of a place where we can be Muslims and chilled out. We don't have to hear all this filth and be bombarded with all this nonsense that's going on in the West.
Yeah, absolutely.
And while still enjoying all the benefits of Western society.
Yeah, we want a safe space where we can practice Islam in the West. But yeah, keep our women in niqabs and all that without.
Oh God, this episode is just spiraling out of control.
But yeah, I think just to summarise, so the point I wanted to make was let's save this island if we can. Should we do a 5 Pillars fundraiser? Tell us what you think in the comment section below. Would you back that fundraiser?
Not
I
that
don't know
island,
how much.
But another island, right?
I think we should save the island. I think we should get involved in this particular story.
Island.
Because what we
just
could
to
do...
annoy them.
Yeah, exactly. Let's derail their plans. Because do we really want a crazy Lady of Heaven style loony island off of the coast of the UK? Yeah. I don't think so. And I think...
Whoever's selling this island couldn't have realised that he was going to spark a bidding war between extremists.
All right, well, do you know what? That might be the next journey I take is to this island.
It's going to be like 20 million.
I don't even know where this island is or if there's anyone living on it. Do you think there's anyone living on it?
There's a couple of sheep, I think.
Yeah. Poor sheep. Yeah. All right, well, let's see. Tell us what you think in the comment section below.
If we get it, those sheep could be halal meat. That's dinner for you, first night.
There you go, killing sheep. Well, brothers and sisters, I think we've reached the end of the programme. We've gone to some interesting places towards the end, but I think we'll end it there. Please let us know what you think in the comment section below. Please like, share and subscribe. It helps the channel immensely. And I guess until next time, we will catch you on the next episode of Muslims Uncensored. But for now, Assalamu alaikum wa salama for now.